Hey guys, Thomas the Slow Jr. here, aka Mustached Tom, and I'm here to review the Disney movie Cruella. If you end up enjoying this review, then please consider joining my Patreon page. Any donations are desperately needed. That'll be the second link in the description. I'll remind you at the end of the review. With shelling out of the way, let's talk about Disney's Cruella. Alrighty, so a little bit of history for this one. So we have 101 Dalmatians, which is where this comes from, right? This is a quote-unquote prequel to that, with the idea that they're trying to sympathetically establish Cruella as a character. This is exactly what they did to Maleficent in that movie. They had two movies with her. And that movie has its own weird stuff going on and some cool stuff, but it's really weird. Like those movies are really weird. Considering where Maleficent was before those movies, so, you know. So, in a way, at least it wasn't a complete Disney remake, which I'm pretty sure people were already getting tired of, but then again, we could see even more remakes in the future from Disney. I wouldn't be surprised if they haven't run out of ideas yet for things that they could just keep on remaking. That's what Disney do. So this time they were going for another thing like Maleficent, it appears like. So Cruella, this is what the next one they decided to do. And with that, I guess I'll go into the events that happen in the movie. So, I think to establish this, I kind of have to spoil the end of the movie pretty quickly, even though I usually go in chronological order. But they are trying to, and keep this in mind throughout the review, they are trying to establish that this is a prequel to 101 Dalmatians, based off of the ending of this movie. Keep that in mind throughout this review. And if you've seen 101 Dalmatians, you know what I'm talking about. So, anyway, we cut to way back when Cruella was born. Apparently she was born with the white and black hair. Okay, that's interesting, sure. Do what you want. So she's initially named Estella. And as she's growing up, she seems to get in trouble at school. She seems to get bullied. And she has a dog that she finds relatively early on, and she seems to find companionship in that dog. So she doesn't have a hatred for dogs yet. So already starting to look like a little bit of, like they're trying to do something very different. Opposite, even, of the original 101 Dalmatians, which already raises a red flag by just giving her a dog, period. But okay, we're going there, I guess. So, we cut to London, where they're moving since she got kicked out of her initial school, wherever they were in the beginning of the movie. I forgot where. And she already wants to be a fashion designer. Like, they had a brief moment where she, like, talked about a certain piece of clothes from the mother, and then, yeah, I guess that's the establishment that they needed. Whatever. It's fine. So, she gets out of the car where, she runs into a fashion show that is happening. However, while she's inside, she gets caught, and the Dalmatians, 3 of them, start to chase her. Like wild, angry animals. So they make the Dalmatians like these evil doggos that just chase her. And as she heads out, she's inside this building, so she heads out where her mother is currently. She's like at the edge of this water pillar location, which we'll come back to later on in this review. We see this other woman who we don't know anything really about, but we'll learn what her deal is later on. And the dogs seem to jump over Estella and seem to go past her and then run towards the the mother of Estella and tackle her off of the building or the ledge. She falls into the water, so she's dead. She dies. And Estella, at this point in the movie, thinks that this is her fault. Because she led the dogs outside, and they ran past her and did the thing. So, after this, and wanting to get out of the situation, she makes her way, like, outside, and then she jumps into the span. So she gets carried back into main London area, and she ends up at this water fountain where two other boys, presumably also orphans, because she indicates through her narration that she is indeed now an orphan. She quickly gets in with them, and the three of them are now chased by the police. She follows the dog, and the dog follows them into this high building / escape area that they have. Their little base of operation, where we meet Horace and Jasper, the two side thugs. And thus, they begin to steal things because they're in the homeless zone, so they want to get by through any means necessary. And as the movie cuts forward, we see her with red hair. She dyes her hair, or she uses a wig, or she creates a wig off screen, I guess. And she would elaborately design these clothes, and the other two would help her, and they were really good, according to both the narration and what we are seeing in the movie. So, through the time frame, after this little montage of them stealing some of this stuff, we see that Estelle is still fascinated with fashion design. She sees this billboard and everything of this certain location where she could work. So, I think it was Jasper of the two of them that gives her this job resume opportunity. He sticks this resume that he forged or created and then put it in a thing that would give her the job. So she ends up getting the job, except she ends up being a cleaner. And every time she tries to speak up, she's ignored and told to get back to it consistently. To the point at a point where she's outside and she gets locked out, and her little two friends and her two dogs now, the other guy had a dog with an eye patch, that let them in. So again, she's forced to clean after her little debacle outside, and as she's the last one there cleaning, she's closing out, I guess is the best way to put it. She's drinking alcohol, which, that one is a little surprise coming out of Disney that they would have a character drinking alcohol and getting drunk. They haven't done that since the original Dumbo, so, I'm willing to be okay, Disney. Alright. Once in a blue moon, they'll have a moment in this movie. It's okay. I see what you're doing. That's pretty good. But, there's everything else to consider in this movie as well, so... So she wakes up, and, as she's getting ready to get fired and everything, this big fashion designer is let in, all the convenience of that, but whatever. This woman is called the Baroness. So she comes in and she sees the design that, Estella is still at this point, gives her, and decides to hire her on immediately. So she gets to move in and is thrust into this new job. She's this Baroness woman's you go make some designs and just, no training, just get in there. So with her already natural abilities, her designs, of course, end up being top tier and top notch. And in the meanwhile, when she goes off on her own for the next little bit, she meets this character named Artie, this art man, uh, who's fabulous, as the best way I suppose I can describe it. Um, so, anyways, so Baroness runs down these two businessmen that are about to talk to her about something, but she insults them, and then they have nothing left to say, so they leave. Meanwhile, we see Estella checking out this vault, and she's like, "Oh, hello." But then she also gets high praise from, or the highest praise she assumes she gets from the Baroness. And she notices, upon the Baroness resting, that she has this pendant that was from her mom. The mom had a pendant that had this red thing on it. The Baroness seems to have the exact same pendant, so that makes Estella go, "Oh, wait a minute." So her allies check up on her, and she's now getting the idea that this woman did something, killed the mother, and the puzzle pieces are coming together. So Estella, thinking that they need to do the big revenge, gets ready to do a heist. So the movie turns into a heist movie very briefly as they montage our way through. As one of the two, I believe Jasper does the camera hacking, and the other guy is making his way in via using animal control. So we also see that the Baroness is the one who currently has the 3 Dalmatians that we see. And this is the first instance where she doesn't believe that she can get in as Estella in this little show. So she comes in, she invents the persona of Cruella. At this point, it's a persona currently. And unveils her costume by throwing a little thing of fire, and it burns only the costume and not her at all. I've never seen it happen. I don't know how that functions, but whatever. It's Disney magic. I think there's a way to do that in real life. I wouldn't be surprised. I just don't know how it works, so I do apologize. I'm not a pyrotechnician by any means. I'm surprised that they are. They just know even earlier on in the movie that can work. So, I don't know. Anyway, so as we're going through this heist, now Cruella, as I'll just keep referring to her as to keep the movie name consistent, the Baroness has the gem on her. They thought that the gem was going to be hidden away, but she has it on her, so all the other shenanigans that the other two are going through are falling apart, slowly but surely. They let rats out, and the rats cause a distraction for Cruella to take the thing, give it to her dog. The Baroness uses a whistle that makes all the Dalmatians go to her. So now, hearing the whistle, or seeing the whistle, I should say, I don't think humans could hear that, or they do, but it's more prominent for dogs, obviously. I know that. But anyways, that's when she gets the flashback, and we re-see the scene with the woman, but we see a close-up of the woman, and that woman ends up being the Baroness. Baroness has the dog device that led them to the corner that killed the woman. So it is now indeed confirmed, whereas previously it was only a suspicion. But now it's confirmed that this woman, this Baroness, was responsible. So, okay. So their whole little squabble ends up with one of the 3 Dalmatians ending up eating the gem, and they have to leave the scene because everything is falling apart. So she sneaks in and she talks with Artie very briefly, and we cut to another montage at this point in the movie where, uh, as they're setting up for more future Baroness shows, Cruella will come in and mess with them one by one. But she has one little nook left to handle. She wants this writer she meets, someone who met her very briefly at the beginning, to essentially write these stories down to give her a little bit of a boon, if, as it were, in this regard. So the Baroness, as we are seeing, always takes credit for the newest thing, even if it wasn't her doing directly. And so, the Baroness and Cruella, or she's using her original persona at this point in the movie, about what it takes to be number one. So she uses her original name, to continue to work in to have that little dichotomy, and she has this ultimate dress. Since they are getting robbed and their shows are being like messed with, they vault up the rest of the dresses until they are ready. So, with a new show coming up, the Baroness, she's actually pretty wise. She comes to the conclusion that Estella might indeed be Cruella. So she's been kind of piecing that together on her own, but she hasn't confirmed that yet. So she's trying to pin down Estella to make sure that that is indeed accurate. And her little show is once again ruined with these flies that buzz out of the room during her latest show. And we move on to the people running outside, and we see this whole concert being put on by Cruella and her crew, and she purposely uses a white and dot polka dotted design to make the Baroness thinks that she killed the Dalmatians, because I forget where this happens, but the three of them initially, at some point between the escape and this, they capture the three Dalmatians and sort of try to wait for the pooping to happen so they can get the gem. So she uses this design to make the Baroness think that she killed the Dalmatians. So she didn't actually do it. Again, not very accurate to what we know of the 101 Dalmatians of Cruella, but okay. But as she makes her way back, thinking that she was successful, the Baroness has found her secret hideout somehow. So the Baroness, the other two get fired, by the way, between this, so they're unable to help her. So the Baroness has Cruella's base set on fire, and she's left there to die. But her two dogs are there to help her out, and she goes unconscious, and we see a brief moment of a suit sort of silhouette to the scene as she blanks out. And so the news, as we cut to some time frame ahead, is implicated that Cruella is indeed dead. And we see the Baroness's main bodyguard, I guess is what he is, this bald man, ends up helping her out. And he also gives her the pendant, which has the key, which unveils the secret to the secret of the secrets. That the Baroness was Cruella's true mom, as it would turn out, and then we see a flashback of this. The Baroness had a relationship with a character named the Baron, so there's that. They did the things of sex, and they had a child. The Baroness, not wanting this at all, told this guy to go get rid of this baby. And so, having a conflict of heart and having a heart in general, he decides to give this baby to the person he can trust the most, which is this one young girl who he claims was the nicest among them. And that's the mom that Estella slash Cruella knows growing up at the beginning of the movie. The one who died. So she goes back to the fountain again, and she narrates to this statue about her new lifestyle, about the decisions she has made, and trying to do the things, and But she says she can't go through that anymore, so she breaks into the police station and breaks her companions out. And after this little breakout, Cruella visits Artie once more to set up their last little setup here. And again, we get another montage of another little setup here. And during their escape, by the way, they end up in a car that's named DeVille, or as they refer to it as Devil as well. Just make sure you know that that's what that could have been. And she's like, oh, I like that. So anyways, the show at the Baroness's show is starting up, her main big show. And all the women that are going there all dress up as Cruella, as they're, I guess, told to do so, question mark? Yeah, that part didn't really make a lot of sense, but whatever. All of this is to get the Baroness to get all confused and flustered and angry. And of course the Baroness sees all of this. Meanwhile, we see Cruella sneak in and prick the Baroness very briefly. And as she makes her way through to the back, she changes into Estella and eventually leads the Baroness outside, back to that ledge that we see at the very beginning. And so, as she's communicating with the Baroness, stalling for time, essentially, the other people, Artie and the other two, are leading the people outside at a distance to see what is about to happen, to see what is about to unfold. And apparently, the Baroness doesn't hear any of them come out and talk or whatever. So the Baroness goes in for a hug that she indicates that she's going to do, and then she leads into a push, and everyone sees this. Now, she gets arrested because she did this, and she's led away, and people think Stella is dead because she did this as a Stella. Apparently, as we learn after the fact, after we see the funeral take place, we hear her narrate how things didn't pan out exactly as we saw it. We see her fall, and apparently, during the last montage, she somehow built an entire parachute. Shrug on that one, I don't know. And that lets her live through the ordeal of not being crushed into the waves of what's below. Thus, since the Baroness is out of the picture, and since she is the inheritance owner of this, and she's the proper daughter of the Baroness, she takes over this building that the Baroness owned, where she renames it Hell Hall. It was called Hell something Hall before she ripped off the middle part. And takes over that new building. And we see them explore it for a bit. So, we cut to a little I don't know if it's an after credit sequence, but a little sequence after the movie where Cruella, again, indicated what I said at the beginning of the review, gives one bearded dude and the writer chick 2 Dalmatians each, and she even names them the names of the 2 dogs in the movie. And that's where the movie ends. Again, that ending part of the movie is indicating that this is indeed a proper prequel to 101 Dalmatians, which again has, since there is no new version of that, again, the only thing I have to go off of is the original version of 101 Dalmatians, which again, I don't think that this character gets to that point ever in the movie, which is a problem. Uh, and again, I'm struggling to remember if how Maleficent did in this regard, but that's another thing. So we'll stick to this. So again, with this being a prequel, that is a lot of where the suffering and the badness comes in. Because now we have to, as a prequel, we have to consider it in terms of where it belongs in the whole thing. That is what a prequel ought to do, and that is what a sequel and a trilogy ought to do. So, just to make it crystal clear, a prequel should, theoretically, if it's done well, pre-establish a character. It should do that, and this movie doesn't do that to the character we know in 101 Dalmatians. That is the main problem with this movie. It is creating a alternative version of that character that isn't who we understand currently to be Cruella de Vil. So it doesn't make any sense. This prequel doesn't make any sense. It does not function as a prequel. And it's trying to say that it is indeed a prequel. So it spits in the face of that. And just so, to emphasize, if there's a sequel or whatever, a sequel, in any regard, should continue the progression of a character, should continue the progression of a story, should continue to progress and continue everything in that way. So that's what a sequel should do. That's a functionality within the title of it being a sequel or a prequel. I want to make sure I'm establishing that because this movie struggles to even be, again, a prequel. And again, it's trying to set it up through the ending of this movie. And now, again, since we have an idea of where the main character is currently from the original movies, I can't say that this character fits that character. There's too wide of a gap. She's sympathetic. She likes dogs to an extent. They end up she still has her dog, she has the other dog. The 3 Dalmatians, I guess 2 of the 3 get donated to the 2. So, I'm gonna have to give this movie, as well acted as it is, and the few moments that made me go, huh, alright, Disney, okay, you had a drink, okay. Outside of those little moments, I'm gonna have to go as low as a 2 out of 10. The most I can give this movie is that, again, the acting is really good. Like, Emma Stone, she did a pretty good deal here for what she was given. Even her laugh was really good. I would say that was definitely the highlight, and hearing that laugh and hearing it sound very authentic to the character, even though it's the only time and moment that it does feel like the most like the character, or the closest to the character. But everything else in this movie, it does not work as a prequel, and that is a problem. This movie does not function properly. It is supposed to be a thing, and it does not fulfill that thing. It is not good. So I can't give it anything higher than a 2 out of 10, out of principle of what I believe a prequel should be, or a sequel or whatever. But it is a prequel, and it's done so poorly. And again, I'm trying to give it as much on both ends as possible. And again, I want to make sure I'm emphasizing that the acting is really well done. But acting can only account for so much. It can only do so much. If your initial story is this far removed in terms of it being a prequel to your main story, there is a problem. It does not function. It does not fit as a prequel. You messed up. You poorly wrote this to the point of it being the opposite character pretty much in almost every other regard, except for a very small window of the movie where she actually seems to fit the bill of the character. Outside of that one moment in the movie where she starts actually being cruel to even her allies, is the closest she gets to being that character. And again, that should have been what her entire shtick should have been, even as a prequel, or lead up to it in a way that functions and fits. You know, even if you're gonna go through the whole sympathetic backstory thing, again, there are certain things that you need to fulfill. Though you need her to have her hate dogs in general, but most of all hate Dalmatians. Now the problem is that again she just kind of donates to Dalmatians ? Like why? I don't know. Like that doesn't feel like something Cruella would ever do. Even have a dog. Period. Like have her be scared of dogs at first. Instead of hating dogs, have her be scared of dogs. Easy fix. Easy fix. This is writing 101. This is so fucking basic. Like, come the fuck on. 2 out of 10. That's the highest I can give it. This movie is really, really bad. I feel really bad for the actors involved because they really were trying very clearly, but they were put in a movie that is really shit. So 2 out of 10, that's my review of Disney's Cruella. If you ended up enjoying this rant, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head over to my Discord server, the other to my Patreon page. Any donations are desperately needed. And until next time everyone, bye bye.